G'day, friends and fans. Welcome to Dave Talk Stuff. Now, the idea that women have become more superficial, or at least become superficial, is not new. It's been a topic of debate for many years now. But I think the attribute shift of women has become so noticeable that even older women are starting to realize there's something fundamentally wrong with women under 30. Now, while this attitude represents a shift in societal attitudes in general, most attribute this shift to social media, and in particular, dating apps. Many argue, however, that women have always evaluated partners based on status, resources, and appearance, that it's fundamental evolution. But some argue, in particularly a recent university paper on predatory sexual behavior by women, believe that there's a fundamental shift in women's psychology, not so much from that they've gone from, let's say, mild predatory behavior to aggressive predatory behavior, and that women are more aggressive once they have a relationship, but right now they're not aggressive in pursuing relationships. They're still passive. In fact, many are passive aggressive in their attitudes. It's just that we are so used to their attitude, we don't have a benchmark, because women bounce ideas off each other so much, they influence each other's behavior so much, that the gradual shift over time. So the louder, more outrageous women used to stand out, but they don't anymore. Now, you might say, everyone's tried to be like Lucille Ball, then like Elizabeth Taylor, then all the way down to Taylor Swift, with lots in between. But in reality, they're also products. They're bouncing off each other all the time. The fact that women influence each other is nothing new either. But the shift is gone from the positive to the negative. Before I continue, I'd like to remind you that this show is sponsored by you, the viewing audience. You can support the channel, Empire Valves, that's Empire Valves, one word, empirevalves.myshopify.com. These are enchanting treasures based on my writing. Step into a world of magic and wonder with the Empire Valves, where science and magic collide. It's your one-stop shop for enchanting treasures based on my writing. There's the coffee hound himself, the Emperor, and his wife, Sora. Alrighty then. So, many people say women are not giving up feminism. That may or may not be true, but this is more about women in general and not aimed at any one specific group. Just a notice that those who engage in dating apps tend to be more superficial than those who engage in relationships through interpersonal relationships early in life. So if you start in life with a social group, you marry within your social group, you tend to be more grounded than those who engage through social media and dating apps. Now, those who study relationships and human dynamics believe digital platforms have made the most negative impact on society. Not alone, they are not alone in this negative impact. Of course, all forms of media had made negative impacts on society, the highest being digital platforms. Users debate this, however, and so do the tech platforms do push back. Overall, however, the sociologists and psychologists do note that increased visibility and those who have the more audience a woman gets, the less detached from individual relationships she becomes, and the more promiscuous. And they prioritize traits like income and looks and social status more than women in the same age group in previous decades. They've been tracking social trends since the 20s and how women behave since the advent of psychology. So digital platforms, the worst for women. Brings out the narcissist, the attention craving. Now, it doesn't mean all will be promiscuous, but it's the assumption that straight away, the more most men realize, the more attention women want, the more promiscuous they become. Because if you can't, no one person can keep up with the amount of attention people, and you see this in Hollywood. You see this all over, but in some social circles, it's seen, and in some countries, it's a guarantee that you don't have exclusive relationships with women. They won't. It's just a given. The game, not if, but when they are going to have multiple relationships. So may come to a surprise to some people, but not to others. And not every and some societies, they are pushing back. So we will reach a peak where the pushback is visible, and not amongst men, but other women who are sick and tired of the reputation that comes from being associated with the disreputable attention seekers. Now, a lot of analysts believe that digital platforms have given women such a high volume of potential partners that they feel that they can systematically swing from vine to vine their entire lifetime, that there's no competition. That when there's a high number of men available on dating apps, women tend to date more than marry. But some countries have noted this paradox where the more choice women get, the more pickier they become, and that they engage in a superficial screening process, and we reach peak negativity in China, of all places. China is now considered the most materialistic group in the world. Now, we're talking about mainland Chinese in what they call first-tier cities. In second-tier cities, you notice a noticeable difference, and the lower you go. But the thing is, you have a migration towards higher-tier cities. So the more beautiful a woman thinks she is, the more likely she's to move to an urban area seeking a higher status partner. Now, some of it is obviously driven by the get away from drudgery. This is where women believe their looks entitle them to a luxurious lifestyle. Now, whether or not men created this or it's a mutual feedback is a theory for debate, but you cannot deny that there is a fundamental problem in society that demands a house, a car, and a bride payment, no guarantees of marriage, no guarantees of proper relationships, no guarantees that she won't cheat. There's no refunds. And you can look up and see the divorce rate in China has gone from the smallest to the worst in the world. The birth rate has gone from the most prolific to the least. And this is happening now in other countries as well. It didn't even look. The problems didn't start or end in America. It's like, believe it or not, America's in the middle. America's in the middle for violence. America's in the middle for divorce. It's just that you have the most open and transparent media in the world. So you see more of America's issues than anywhere else, because everywhere else is hiding their issues, hiding what's going on. Covering up is the norms in Europe, Asia, and particularly Africa, where it's genuinely believed the only thing keeping most relationships alive is fear. And that is also another social problem in itself. And it's the same in the Middle East. Most relationships are based on fear, than a fear of being alone, fear of being attacked, fear of not having children. So there's a number of fears in different countries, in different demographics, in different groups. They see what it's like to be old, whereas in the West, because for so long we've shuffled off those over 60 to old age homes, whether they wanted to or not, and now those parents who shuffled off their parents, so those who are now parents who shuffled their parents off are now at that point where they're afraid their kids are going to shuffle them off. Well, we warned you. Gen X, Gen Y warned boomers to not do that, to not shuffle their parents off and shirk responsibility. But they did. And now millennials are looking to do it sooner. And you now have a lot of Gen Xers who are just spending the money, no inheritance for you. They see their kids as ungrateful brats, entitled ungrateful brats. Most people are only proud of Gen Z. You know that, right? Boomers don't like the fact that Gen X and Gen Y didn't follow in their footsteps. They're proud. Boomers are proud of millennials, their grandchildren. Want to give them everything because, and spoil them rotten. And they did. But the spoilt rotten generation, who are afraid by the time they get to boomer status that they will be broke, or worse, that they can't afford the healthcare. See, every society and every generation has their fears. And out of all these fears, because they understand the lifestyles they lead are not good, but they're so afraid of breaking from their social groups, their social pressure to stay within their social groups, particularly women. Women increasingly report fears and social pressures that they blame on their husbands or men in general. But if you look at the magazines and their social media, it's full of women. Their DMs are full of, you know, what their DMs are full of, right? There isn't a woman on social media who isn't harassed. But if men don't, but these men understand it's the only way to get a woman is to ask, is to ask, is to ask, is to ask, and ask, and ask, and ask, and ask, and ask. The average man asks 20 women to get one to talk to them, even though 50% of women are single, or 60%, depending on the country. But again, it's all superficial behavior. And men deliberately start at the top because, believe it or not, the loneliest people in the world are the most beautiful people. But they tend to go through the most relationships. So again, it comes down to the paradox of choice, the impact of digital media, and the development or strategy of unrealistic expectations. Now, whether you believe it's deliberate strategy by political organizations or an evolution of ideas, unrealistic expectations are the number one reason why most men have given up on dating. You could debate this, but most younger generations, if they do not organically attract a woman, they do not pursue a woman. And by organically attract, it doesn't mean she flirts with him. She has to actually tell him, yes, I'm interested. So a woman looks at you, you tap the seat beside you. If she doesn't come over, move away, right? Because there's only two reasons why a woman looks at you. She's either interested in you, and that's less than 10%. The 90% of the time, you're disturbing her peace. And she's growling at you in that, unless she's actually making the mean face, you don't know. But there is a guarantee, right, that most women are looking at men as predators. So they see that they are so on edge by media constantly drip feeding them. Now, there are situations where you can go, definitely, but the problem is women are being told not to be racist, and they tell each other not to be racist. So they have to treat all men as predators, even though the vast majority are not. And predators are usually obvious these days, but no one wants to speak the obvious. So you have a guarantee that you're going to be judged for being a man and looked down upon for being a man unless you meet a narrow series of superficial qualities. Now, discussions, particularly on groups like Quora, always show a mixed opinion about whether or not women have unrealistic expectations and what they are. Some attribute these preferences to being practical because women need security and protection. But you can't be there all the time. Society doesn't allow it. And women won't accept it. Now, other groups argue that women have developed unrealistic expectations because they can, simply by having the fact that there's more men out there with more wealth than ever. You may complain that trickle-down economics doesn't exist. I argue that that's exactly what economics is. There are more middle-class men than... Now, the middle class has shrunk in the last 10 years, but still, when most people are kids, right, they are always looking up, not down. So as we get older, instead of looking to our own peers, everybody seems to be looking up at whatever the preference group the media shows us on television and social media. So choosing partners, right, in that crucial time period we are disconnected from the get-go. But women are choosing partners based on commodities, whereas men are merely being superficial, looking at the biggest bazingas on the planet. Because what do we see on TV? What do we see growing up? Boob watch. What do we see in Instagram? Boobs. What do we see when we're first signing up to social media? All the models, all the ladies, all the time in our feed. Right when Twitter first started, it was all the you had the Instagram, you had the Twitter, you had the Facebook, you had all the bikini models, the lingerie models, and you had women in your DMs with, "Hey, you want to see my OnlyFans? You want to see my OnlyFans?" And for a lot of men, particularly in my age, you had Asian women by the truckload in your DMs. Even if you were married, you still had Asian women in by the truckload. "Oh, you don't want Western wife. Western wife's no good." I mean, there is many fingers whenever you point a finger, there's many fingers pointing back at you. But the number one argument about unrealistic expectations is women have been open about it in the last couple of years that if you have no house, no car, you get no far. Okay? Now, in the last 20 years, women have only chased gym bros, and they've gone to gyms, they've gone looking at Instagram, because they get the same thing. They get all the himbos in their feeds, they get all the himbos in their DMs, and I'm going to treat you like a queen, you know? And yeah, so the Chads and Tyrones, most of whom get penis extensions as soon as they can afford one. You get all the hustlers who are basically they can't bank their money, so they spend it. Hookers and blow, right? So women are not choosing long-term partners, and they're only seeking commodities rather than genuine affection or human connections. And it goes back to high school in the last, I would say, 40 years, where school teachers have kept students from forming interpersonal relationships. Kiss the birthright. Oh, too many single mothers. No, they weren't. There weren't too many. They were all just jealous old biddies, cranky that no one was choosing them. Because what happens now? What are these same school teachers doing? They're turning around, keeping young men from forming relationships with young women, and then turning around and trying to get them to form relationships with old women. So it's driven by jealousy. Now, emotional intelligence. Everybody claims emotional intelligence, claiming women are increasingly emotionally intelligent and emotionally mature. Well, increasingly women are proving that to be wrong, with the number of single mothers, the number of women who engage in superficial relationships, the number of women who cannot engage in a monogamous relationship. However, there are those, particularly liberals and libertarians, who argue that women are just shedding their artificial, the imposed society's imposition on them. That claiming that, oh, people are just naturally good. You just got to give them time to find themselves. No, that's all cope. People are not naturally good. You're generalizing. You have the racism of low expectations of some groups and over expectations of other groups. And you even look at dating. Some women will slum it with some groups, but then treat other groups as having, oh, we only want the Chad. So you go for the Tyrone and then the Chad, and why would the Chad want you? Women complain that men lack emotional skills and emotional stability. But in reality, they're not going after stable young men. They're bullying and pushing men to the point of breaking, and then claim that, oh no, I'm just trying to find out if he loves me. No, you're stroking your ego by manipulating him. You're causing all the problems. Your love testing causes the problems. Naturally, to find a partner, you only engage in 3 tests in your lifetime. The first date, the second date, and the third date. And if he passes all 3, you give himself to you. Right? You give up your freedom for security and protection. Okay? For financial security and you exchange your body for goods and services. You just don't like the fact that you have to rely on someone. Why? Because you're afraid of your social circle. You're afraid that you're not stunning and brave or strong and independent like your so-called heroes. But none of your heroes are strong and independent. They rely on you buying their books, going to their Instagram, feeding the social media frenzy and in turn the commercial frenzy around the upper classes. If you didn't engage in social media, your mental health goes up. If you engage only in social media of a few hours and less. Do you know what the number one hobby of women is today? TikTok. And you wonder why women are unstable? If you can't watch a video for more than a couple of seconds, there's something mentally wrong with you. Now, we noticed this in the 80s where people couldn't sit through a 90-minute movie. Yet, a few epics that come out, there were still enough people emotionally intelligent to actually sit for a 3-hour movie. Those are the emotionally intelligent ones, not the ones who go around saying, I'm emotionally intelligent. Yeah. Women expect men to be mind readers, to know what they're thinking and wanting. Oh, you should know me by now. Really? When have you ever told me what you like? Particularly with clothing, when women change their styles like they change socks. And some women have a very nasty habit of wearing the same bra for weeks on end because they get comfortable. And then wonder why they get armpit itch. Or other problems. Most women are self-inflicted wounds when it comes to their own misery. And it all comes down to psychological disorders that are developed by being superficial, by not engaging in monogamous relationships, by not being able to sit through more than 5 minutes of a video. Social media has reduced people's attention spans to 30 seconds or less. This is damaging to your intelligence. So it means you don't have the patience to work out problems or cooperate as groups or work things out. You rather just give up because it's easy. If you keep taking the easy way out, civilization is based on rules, behaviors. We can trace so many problems back to single mothers and so many single mothers back to social media. Back when girls between 15 and 18 were having children, it was only a handful. It was rare. And even then, most of the time it was, son, you're getting married. You're going to get married. You know? But I don't want to. It's the I don't want to mentality that's unfortunately carried forth from the boomers. The boomers in the 50s and 60s did not raise the following their children to honor traditions. No, all the boomers decided, nah, we're going to be hippies or yuppies or whatever fad group, of the left or the right. And most of the people who wanted to be left alone, there's not enough of them to impact society. And they don't like either side. But too many people embrace some sort of fanaticism. If you want to self-improve, you have to ditch the superficial. Whether you're a man or woman, you have to put more effort into anything and everything you do. I know there are times I could put more effort into anything and everything. It's harder as you get older to put in maximum effort in everything you do. It's easy to be good. I find it very easy to be good. I think it takes sometimes I guess it's because if you're considerate of others, you put in effort. You do be good whether people are watching or not. It's the fact that there are so many people who just want to get ahead because they're driven by the, I would say, GTA culture. But see, I can't point to a movie and say these series of movies encourage bad behavior because I don't think most of it's coming from movies anymore. I think it's street culture, and street culture comes through, and of course they will blame violent video games. It's not fair to blame violent video games because violent video games are merely reflections of the culture, products of culture, not cultural impacting. No, I think the majority get their behavior from the low, the loud, the obnoxious, but ultimately the attention seeking in society. And there's just something fundamental, particularly with children. Monkey see, monkey do. Right? The monkey brain, that's how we learn. Monkey see, monkey do. We all learn. So it's a failure, it's a systemic failure of governments. It's a systemic failure of social leaders. It's a systemic failure of previous generations to hold standards. And it started with boomers. Every generation since has gotten worse, not better. Every generation blames boomers for greed, but it's actually the millennials who drove the most greed. Gen X and Y with the yuppies, but yeah, the greediest, and the most speculative generation is millennials. You look at Bitcoin, you look at all these artificial wealth schemes that they've created over the years, of which really Bitcoin's the only success story. All your how many other schemes can we even think of or remember? The real estate bubble, the commodities bubble. These are all repeats of previous generations' wealth schemes, where ultimately only the few who can have, can stable, even some of the richest people in the world have been victims of the instability in the stock market because they tried to grow through leverage, or simply, fund managers who fail to, grow with the times. Wealth moves with if people are not traditionally loyal to anymore, so the old standards of, oh, once the money's in the bank, they're going to stay a customer for life is gone. So there's good and bad in every social trend. But ultimately, there's virtually nothing positive to say about how superficial some women have become, where others would argue it's only some women because almost everyone is superficial these days. It's to what degree? If you want better outcomes, you have to become a better person and rise above society. And ultimately, over time, let those who you have to realize there are those you cannot save. Whereas those who can be saved will naturally congregate around you and want to be saved. If you get my point. Right, before I go, there's Future Fantasy, my Patreon. As you can see, my latest post is all the links for my RPG news over on my other channel. Primarily dedicated to role playing and gaming. Yeah, that's one way. Another way you can support the channel. Thank you for watching. All my links are in the link tree description below, in my profile, or scan the QR. Yeah. You can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon. Yeah. Here's my link tree. You can scan the QR code on the screen. I got ahead of myself, didn't I? Yes. I vary my speeches because I don't want the label of artificial idiot. Yes. AI. Everybody, I'm not saying well, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people who use AI just no regard for you, the viewing audience, the customer, right? That they just want to serve up what you think you want to hear. I'm trying to give you what you need. Bye for now.